Hey there PhD friends, and welcome to another video. In today's video I want to talk about informational interviews. All right, so informational interviews were actually really pivotal to my career. I remember being a postdoc and actually taking an Uber over to somebody's office who was a medical writer. They own their own agency. It was actually more of a PR and communications agency, but she had a PhD and I was so intrigued by that. And so I remember it was a lift. I took a lift to her office and had a conversation with her for about 30 minutes to an hour and learned a whole bunch about the career path she was in. I think that was the beginnings of me realizing that I wanted to be in medical communications. I wanted to be a writer. And yeah, you know, today I'm here. I have been a medical writer for a while now. So informational interviews are really, really useful. So probably you're thinking, okay, G, what is an informational interview? An informational interview simply is a conversation you have with somebody in a career path that you're interested in with the intent of learning about that field, right? The intent isn't necessarily to get a job. It isn't for them to link you up with something. It's actually to learn. Now, if linking you up with something comes out of that, that's amazing, and it can happen. But the true purpose of an informational interview really is to learn as much as you can about that profession so that when you are applying to these roles, you can speak specifically, right, to what that role needs. Now, what do I mean by speaking specifically to what that role needs? What I mean is this: when you apply for jobs and you go into the interview knowledgeable, you go and you communicate authoritatively, like you know, like you're aware, like you're ready for this job, you increase your chances of getting that job. And for me, when I was doing informational interviews, it was sort of the research phase for me of gathering information I needed so that I would be armed with that when I went into interviews for the kind of job I have now. So if you go into informational interviews this way, trust me, you'll win. Now, one of the side benefits of an informational interview is the fact that once you have an informational interview with somebody, you tend then at that point to be on that person's radar. So I had a really, really good question. I just actually got off giving a talk to a group of students, and somebody had asked, you know, when you have an informational interview, at what point is it okay to ask the person you're interviewing with or the person that you're chatting with if they could link you up with a job? And here was my response to that question. First of all, go with the intent that you want to learn. Ask the questions you need to ask, take the notes you need to take. Then towards the end of the conversation, you should thank them. Always thank people for their time. I'm very, very particular about my time. I don't like people wasting my time. So I don't like wasting anybody else's time. Anybody who knows me will tell you this. So when somebody gives me the gift of their time, I'm very, very careful to say thank you so much for making time for me. Now, whilst you thank them, what you can say, right, is thank you so much for having this time with me. This conversation we had really has helped me learn more about this career path, and I'm even more intrigued by it now that I've had this discussion with you. If ever you come across any roles that you think I'll be a good fit for, could you let me know? That is a perfect way for you to end the conversation. It is not intrusive. It's not rude. You're not demanding that they give you a job, and you made the ask. I really used to be that person that was shy to ask for things, but recently I realized that closed mouths do not get fed. So it's important to state what you need, but to state in a way that is respectful, to state in a way that shows that you're not using the person. Because trust me, there's a way that you can communicate with somebody that says, oh, so that's all you wanted? And you know that feeling is not right when it's you. So don't do it to somebody. So what are some questions you can ask during an informational interview? So here are a few questions you can ask during an informational interview. Number one, you can ask people, what is work like for you on a daily basis? I'll tell you right now, whenever people ask me that question, I tell them it's different from day to day. And that's the truth for many professions. But there are certain professions that are pretty set in stone, and they'll tell you what usually goes on within a day in their life. So ask that question. I feel like it's such an important question to ask. Another question to ask is, what do you like most about your job or what you're doing right now? This is also a really good question because people will be able to tell you exactly what they enjoy, and then you can sort of take note of that and then self-introspect, right? I like using that word so much, but like look within yourself and see, do I enjoy those things as well, right? And then the other question you can ask is, what don't you like about your job, or what don't you like about this role that you're in? And here also you can learn a whole lot, because it may be something that you also don't like, or it could be something that you're like, wait a minute, I like that stuff. It's funny to me that people don't like that stuff. For instance, right? And within the scientific community, a lot of people don't like to write. It's just what it is. But I'm the scientist who does like to write. So that was always like the interesting combination for me, right? But I loved writing. And so even though there were a lot of scientists, a lot of people I knew personally who did not enjoy writing, it was really nice to know that if you enjoyed writing, then medical writing, medical communications was something that you were going to enjoy. Another good question to ask is to find out what kind of career advancement people can expect in this career path. So what kind of career advancement can I expect on this particular career path? I think this is really important to know, especially because I think that everybody should strive to grow in their career and should strive to get to the top or near the top or whatever that is for you. I just believe in growth, right? And so for me as a medical writer, I've thought about this, like if I continue on this path, if I don't veer off into something else, what would advancement look like for me? Advancement could look like becoming a marketing manager at a biotech. It could look like becoming a VP of marketing within a biotech or within a pharma company. It could look like a few things, right? So it's good to know what the opportunities for growth and advancement are. And usually somebody in the profession is going to be the best person to tell you what those opportunities for advancement are. Another good question to ask is, what skills make a successful in search profession? So what skills make you a successful medical writer? What skills make somebody a successful consultant? So on and so forth. So it's good to ask that question, because again, that will give you information on skills you may need to brush up on, skills you may need to learn, skills you may need to hone in on, again, so that when you go into those interviews, you can prove to them that you can do what you say you can do. You can also ask, what led you to this career path? This is always interesting for me to hear, and I love sharing my own story as to how I ended up in medical writing, right? So it's always interesting to hear, because you'll hear varied stories, you'll hear varied paths, but what I find in those stories, that whilst they're very, very different, one of the things you can do is like pick nuggets and pick like pivotal points within those stories to inform your own decision to entering into that profession.
The drink is appropriate.
Also find out if there are any educational courses or certifications that that person had to take in order to enter into the profession. There are a lot of certifications out there, even within medical writing. There are several certifications that are good. They're definitely good because you learn a lot when you take the courses that lead to those certifications, and they are recognized. However, they're not always important to getting a role in that particular field. So it's good to learn what kind of certifications are relevant or which are nice to have. Company culture is also good to ask about if you're planning on joining that company or you plan to apply to that specific company. And the reason company culture is so important, I'm actually very, very passionate about company culture, and everybody can define this differently and everybody looks for different things. But for me, what was important to me was a company where, you know, it was fun to work with the people, right? And not just fun, but these were people that took their work seriously, but still had fun. those people are always great to work with, because you know when you go into a meeting, yes, things are going to get done, but it's also not going to be boring, right? Because we're working, it's work. It's called work for a reason. It's good to have fun at work too. I just happen to believe that. If you believe it, say so in the comments as well. Company culture could also look like, what is it like when you have an emergency and you have to take time off? Are you being contacted on weekends to do work? Do you have to work on holidays? You know, there are companies where this is very common, and for me, it is important for me to have time off. It's important for me to recharge, to spend time with my family. So if I encounter a company where you're expected to work on weekends, expected to answer your phone at all times, you know, you're working deep into the night, that's just not healthy for me, okay? It could be fine for you, but it's not healthy for me. And so that's not a culture I want to be part of. And so if you plan on applying to that company, it's good to learn from that person. And also, there are always like websites like Glassdoor where you can go and sort of read up on that stuff. But it's also good to ask if you have somebody from that company sitting right in front of you. Then this question I think is also good to ask is, what do you wish you knew before you joined this industry? I think that that's such a relevant question that you should ask, because it's going to help you learn a lot. And of course, since it's something that they wish they knew before they got in, you're going to learn it before you enter into that industry. If you're watching this video in April of 2020, especially the first half of April 2020, then let me remind you that the Branded Scholar Bootcamp, which is my course on building a personal brand on LinkedIn, and not just a personal brand, but an impactful personal brand that helps you build your career and opportunities even outside your career, then make sure that you check out the Branded Scholar Bootcamp. If you're interested in doing that, all right, check out the Branded Scholar Bootcamp. It is open until April 17th. On April 17th at midnight, I will be closing the cart so that I can spend a lot of time with the students in this cohort. If you want to join this first cohort and take advantage of this early bird pricing, this is the first time I'm offering this course, go ahead and check that out. It's going to be in the description below, and I'm leaving it on the screen here as well, so you can screenshot this.